Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the work of 2022. It's good to see so many of you that I know and new people that I haven't met yet that I look forward to meeting today. Welcome to the opportunities for collaboration that our Coalition in Homelessness makes possible. The trips around the sun that each new year announces reminds us that we can begin again, that we can plan and act again, that we can keep on building and working to create the healthy community where all our neighbors have a safe and secure home, and for those who do not have them, are able to participate in helping the solutions to happen. For those of you joining us for the first time today, know that we want to be, try to be, and aim to be an open table where all who are committed to ending homelessness are welcome to engage respectfully in promoting solutions. As we come together to share ideas and resources and strategies for action, we acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians who have stewarded this land from very early times and continue to do so today. We join with them in respecting the land as well. To assist us in our commitment to respectful engagement, we have developed a set of norms for interaction, and we don't talk about these in detail every week, but it is the first meeting of the year, and so I'd like to read those today, and I don't know if you have them ready to post, Rob, but if you could, that would be great. Just to remind us of our agreement. So since we meet on Zoom at this time, these ones will be obvious to most of us, but if you haven't been in our group before, we ask that you mute yourself when you're not speaking, that you use the Zoom's raise hand feature, or if it doesn't work for you, if you're on the phone, try some other way to get attention. So we ask you to do that. That we limit distractions by turning off the camera when we're doing other things, taking calls or doing other things in our setting. And that we use the chat as a place to make announcements and to have discussion. We don't consider this a distraction. We want to be a network where people can share with each other as we go along. And then the norms for our interactions themselves, I'll just read those, that we seek to lead with a racial equity lens, that we all commit to being aware of power dynamics, that we challenge concepts and not people, that we listen to learn, that one person speaks at a time, that we speak from our own experience, that we make space and we take space, that we assume the best intentions and take responsibility for impact, and that we be aware of time and agenda. At the end of our meetings, we ask for ideas about what worked and what we could do better. And we don't get a lot of feedback there, but we really do want to hear how we can improve. And we also invite you then, as a part of that, to join us after the meeting if you have ideas for things we should cover, resources we should feature, ways that we should interact. We meet for a short time to plan the meeting for the next week. So with that, I'd like to invite everybody here to welcome each other. And for those who are new, we'd like to know who you are so we can engage with you in the areas that you are concerned about. So what we do in this little portion of the meeting is, if you're new here today, just to unmute yourself and just announce who you are. And if you have relationship to an organization, let us know which that is. It's not time for a long discussion, but we do want to welcome you and know that you're here. So anybody can begin.
My name's Karen Burka, and I just started working as a navigator with Inside Passages of Pierce County.
Welcome, Karen. It's very much wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Dominique Stevens, and I have also started working with Inside Passages as a CTI navigator.
Welcome. Welcome, Dominique. Wonderful to have you.
Good morning. My name is Gay TJ. I'm also working with Inside Passages. I am the Referral Administrative Coordinator.
Well, it's wonderful to have you and so many folks from Inside Passages today. It's great.
Good morning.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
Okay. My name is Sarah Cluis. I'm also with Inside Passages. I'm a rehire. I was originally a navigator. I'm now administrative coordinator, specifically focusing on EHB.
Welcome, Sarah. It's wonderful to have you too.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Calvin Kennan, Supervisor for Homeless Outreach here at Comprehensive Life Resources. I'm new, but I was a part of the coalition early on, and I'm glad to see that you guys are building, still going, and making a difference. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome back, Calvin. I knew I remembered you, and it's wonderful to have you join us again. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kat Green. I'm not new to the coalition, but I am new in a position with Inside Passages. I am the Exceptional Needs Care Coordinator for Inside Passages.
Well, Kat, we look forward to hearing more about your work and how Inside Passages is having all you wonderful people doing the things that you're all going to be doing with them. So great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori. Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Lori.
I'm Lori. Oh. Okay, I'm Lori Adams. I'm just an interested citizen. I have spent several years volunteering at the Nativity House, and I'm just interested in being helpful wherever I can.
Well, Lori, there's plenty to do, so welcome to joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Russ Blunt. I am the interim city manager of the city of Fife. I've been with Fife for a couple of decades, but in my new role, I am much more involved with the folks living outside in Fife. We are working on a jobs program for some of those people and housing options and many different things. I'm sure working with many of you also to help house the people in Fife and the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. It's a great example of a small community working together to help folks who need it. So welcome here, and we look forward to working with you.
And thank you.
I'm Carol Colleran. I get to attend only infrequently because I do something else usually Friday morning, but I got tested positive for COVID, so I'm staying home and enjoying the day, and I'm part of Revenue for Housing.
Welcome, Carol. I'm sorry about the disease, but that's how it goes, isn't it? At least we get to have you here. That's great. Well, this is wonderful. Lots of new folks today. We look forward to the meeting and how we can hear from you. And please, if you're interested in helping us form the ideas for future meetings, think of staying after if you have the time to do that as well. So, Rob, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Rosemary. And boy, it's great to see so many new people today. And boy, Inside Passages must be doing something right.
We're moving and grooving in the new year, everybody.
That's awesome.
We're excited to be expanding our team.
Very cool. So the first regular standing item on our agenda is we ask every week what people who are doing direct outreach are seeing, what changes they're seeing out on the streets. And we are going to, right after this this week on the streets portion of the meeting, talk about the cold weather response that happened last week. So we'll dig into that in more detail next. But I'm curious with folks who are doing direct outreach or taking things to folks who are living outdoors, what you're seeing this week. So I open the floor. Again, please just use the raise hand function if you can, or even just physically raise your hand if you're on screen, and I'll call on everyone as we get going. Yeah, Calvin.
All right. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I had to unmute. Yeah. So being back, I just want to kind of give you guys an update and let you guys know what we're seeing here on our end. We've upped our outreach, typically on our mobile clinic. We have been doing outreach for our mobile clinic 1 day a week, but now, I've had my staff at the request of James and obviously the need to 3 days a week. And we're going to locations that we've previously gone to. We're going to new locations. And a couple of those new locations that we are previously doing mobile clinic and outreach on is 84th and 82nd. Of course, obviously, we all know about 705, under 705 on Puyallup Ave. That's rebuilt itself. And 38th and McKinley and 2nd and G Street. I mean, we're hitting a lot of different pockets. Typically, we're trying to go ahead and at least visit those locations 3 back-to-back visits at the least, maybe 2 weeks of outreach, just so we can kind of better, hopefully develop relationships and have individuals want to, comply and work with us and access services. Whether it be us, our direct service here at CLRB and behavioral health, or maybe sending them to whoever reach, or sending them to just whatever service that they really do need. So we've been doing that. Typically, we've been working with providers to join us. I want to say CMAR has been joining us on a regular, and a couple other different providers, but we're kind of temporarily pushing back and just kind of rolling solo right now, keeping everybody safe as best we can, because obviously we're in COVID right now. So we're going to definitely look into things on a day-to-day, month-to-month, and see what kind of mandates the governor hands down, see what we can do to all of us work together. But in the meantime, just do what we can with the outreach. And as a result of that, we've also opened our doors on Tuesdays and Thursdays for walk-in clinics. So we really, really like to, get that relationship going and have individuals come on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1:00 so we can put the pencil to the paper and really, really pin our ears back and plug individuals in to the best of our ability with services.
Thank you,
Any
Calvin.
questions? Yeah.
Yeah, any questions? I do see some hands raised. Not sure if they're questions for you, but and if they do pop up, we'll definitely get them to you, Calvin. Monique, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I was not out during the cold, but my team in Puyallup was out helping people get into shelter. We didn't lose anyone, so that's a good thing. I just wanted to get on an update on the encampment. There was a fire at the spot. Someone burned down the porta potty, but the city is still moving, trying to get us ready. They're having a little trouble finding the shower trailer that they want. The only one they can find is an 8-person with bathrooms and showers. I don't find a problem with it, but I guess it's too expensive for the city, so they are still working on the shower trailer and the office trailer. We were supposed to open this first week in January. I really, honestly, now I think it's like February, but I don't know. I am collecting all of the items that I need, and I'm just standing by waiting to be able to get on the property. So we're moving, and I'll just keep you posted on what the city says.
Thank you, Monique. Yeah,
I'm
we're all
sorry,
looking.
Rob, maybe I should have said it's a new encampment on 82nd and Pacific for those of you who are new here. It will be opening I don't know, sometime this month or next month.
And again, how many folks is that going to serve when it opens?
25. I'll have 25 tents with the capacity of serving 35 people. So if someone comes as a couple, I am not taking families. I will be running background checks, but I will not be taking families just in case to keep everybody safe.
Great. Thanks for your continued work on that, Monique. Ed, I see you have your hand up.
Just a mention for Calvin. Your mobile clinic, can it get anywhere close to 7th and Tacoma Ave? Because the people living on the street there, I found a rather high incidence of them being ill. So just a kind of a heads up.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. That's one of the ones we've been going to for about 6 weeks now. And of that population, of that location, we do have one individual on the cusp of getting housed. We have a couple of individuals that we were able to make forensic harps for referrals. But yeah, it's ongoing there, Ed. And, we're trying to do what we can to get individuals to a better place, but we'll definitely continue to make our visits there and try and make some things happen. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other folks with items for this week on the streets? Well, as one reminder that I will make that's kind of universal for today's meeting or any of these meetings that you attend is please do continue using the chat. liberally. We do retain the information that's in the chat. So if you do have updates that you don't feel comfortable giving to the full group on screen, or you have questions like you'll see in the chat happening throughout this meeting, please use that as a resource, and know that thanks to the hard work of Garrett Nyland with the coalition website, you can find information and transcripts from these meetings on the coalition website down the road too. So it's meant to all create a resource that's usable for everybody. So if there are no more this week on the streets items, let's queue up and start the conversation about the extraordinary work that was done by so many folks last week between December 26th and what was the day that you finally stood down at the EOC, Garrett? Sunday, but.
We kept operating, Jan and Mike and I, through that Sunday, so the 26th through the following Sunday. But the EOC officially closed on that Thursday.
So just for those who aren't aware, EOC is the Pierce County Emergency Operations Center. And I was only involved peripherally in the effort. Maybe I can turn this over to Garrett if you're comfortable to talk about some of the partners who pulled together and helped ensure that we kept people alive throughout the extreme cold and snow that was in our region for more than a week. So Garrett, would you be comfortable doing that?
Sure. I think I'm going to start off with a bunch of numbers and then maybe folks can kind of chime in a little bit with the more personal stories. Again, cold weather came in, so a few of us kind of started work, I think the day before Christmas, trying to get a bunch of things going. And the Emergency Operations Center, let me take a step back. So Pierce County Human Services hasn't taken a role in terms of really trying to support a crisis like this in the past. And so we're not really designed to do that yet. And because of that and some other things, the Emergency Operations Center opened. So basically we requested help. I don't actually know the full details on how all this happened. And the Department of Emergency Management stepped in. So basically they're the group within the county that steps in when you're past what you're capable of doing. And so that group got stood up. So they work on things like they've been working a bunch creating another testing site, right? That's beyond what the health department's able to do. So the resources of emergency management step in. And so they invited Mike Boyster and Jan Runback and I to sit in with them in the Emergency Operations Center, which is, again, kind of new for them. And it was new for us and really healthy to help direct what they were doing to respond to the crisis. Okay, that was a lot of words with no numbers. I'm going to do numbers. So one of the areas was trying to support our outreach teams, and things that they needed were hand warmers, gloves, socks, blankets, water. We were able to pull off blankets and water pretty well. We provided 968 blankets that went out through the hands of people like Ed and Jeffrey and our outreach teams. And 117 cases of water went out as well. And we had 4 different distribution sites, so hats off to folks helping get those going. Catholic Community Services has been generous with the Stability site. And then the South Hill Baptist Church opened up a distribution site in East Pierce County. LASA in Lakewood opened their facility up for distribution, and LIHI opened up Aspen Court. So always hats off to folks doing things that ain't in their contract, but help meet the need. And lots of folks hit those spots. We had a slow start. One of our challenges is that our formal outreach teams operate mostly during business hours and sometimes outside of it. Rescue missions operating every day, but they've kind of got set patterns in how they do things, which doesn't equate well to responding to kind of this emergent need. So that's something we all kind of need to talk about is, do we really want our community to have that? And how do we pay for it? In terms of shelters, that's kind of one of the big desires, right? Basically trying to help people either in shelter or where they're staying, right? So not everyone's willing to go into shelter, but we did increase shelter. And so over a normal night, like 6 months ago, we probably had an additional 340 people sheltered over this period. And that was in basically 10 different sites that got stood up in varying sizes. So, New Hope, right? Paula's crew helped set up 3, churches to operate shelters in East Pierce County, which is pretty amazing. And they sheltered a lot of people. One of them had 45, another one had 20 something, another one 15. We had 2 county-run sites, so they stood one up at the Sprinker Recreational Site, and Fife was kind enough to allow the Fife Community Center to get used as another site. And the Fife site served 77 unique people over the period of time they were open. There really is only about 15 sleeping there a night, but a lot of people coming through to get warm and to get some food. And 50 folks were served out of the Sprinker site. And again, just hats off to those communities to just allow those groups to come in and use those spaces. We had the city of Tacoma establish the Lighthouse which was a senior center, but they've been using it for various uses, so a community center, and that was used and served about 35 people a night, and is continuing to operate. So they actually have a contract with Vallejo. Vallejo just picked up from LIHI. And again, all of the folks that came in to run these sites, like they put their vacations on hold. Like LIHI basically brought 24/7 staff in that had been on vacation. So hats off to the organization and to all those people and all the folks that, like we had, security at Fife and Sprinker, but other folks just called in favors. And folks, they're all folks, and so that was just neat to see people willing to, oh, do you mind working from, midnight to 8 a.m. for the next 7 days? Sure, people said, which, oh, good for them. We had 3 sites that expanded in capacity. So the rescue mission has had long-standing policy and inclement weather of just anyone that comes in accommodating, and Catholic Community Services of the Nativity House as well. And both of them have some funded expansion, but they also stretched. And Rise did some interesting expansion. They're almost a new site in a way. They have some tiny house, but they opened up the gymnasium in their facility, and really just took a lot of people in. And then we asked if they'd take some more, and they said sure. So we sent more cots over, and I don't know how they staffed it, but it was really important to help as a relief valve for some of rescue mission when it was filled up. And we had St. Vincent de Paul had 90 households in hotel rooms. So that was a neat tool to have during this emergency. So households that couldn't be safe outside, couldn't be safe in a shelter, couldn't get in for various reasons, were well served by St. Vincent de Paul in that work. And Gig Harbor decided to do something this time around, and the police department set up a phone line, and they kind of had a 2-tiered approach, and they ended up helping 2 households with hotel nights. And so I just really appreciate folks dipping their toe in unfamiliar territory, because running shelter is nothing for the weak of heart. It's a commitment to people, right? You're committing to take care of them, and so that's great that they decided to take that on. And that's all that I really have on the numbers side. Again, I just can't say how much the coalitions and the connections. I was thinking about kind of the Edward Murrow kind of in the final 3 feet. And that, you can do so much with diplomacy, but if you don't have the relationships, right, and the drive to get something done, you can't. And that's what the coalition to me really brought into this, was the final 3 feet. When Jan called and when Mike called, people said yes, because we've developed kind of trust by being honest and blah, blah. Anyway, we rocked it. I'm sure that there's going to be people that we identify as having passed away. So we're not as amazing as I wish we were, right? That, we don't have a perfect shelter system. It's not nearly large enough. Our outreach could always be larger. But I think everyone stretched themselves and we did some good things. So hats off.
Appreciate that, Garrett. I was hoping we'll do some of this in a breakout shortly as well, but I was hoping we could talk with some of the folks who actually help provide services or who are working there in the Emergency Operations Center to talk about some of the challenges. Our hope, just like with the heat dome that happened last summer, our hope is that we learn from each of these experiences and we go into the next one more informed and more ready to respond. And I know people cringe when I say it, but this was a December storm, and our winter's definitely not done. So there's the possibility of more winter weather before we're out of this season. So Jan, I saw your hand up, and then I know Josh Castle from LIHI wanted to say a few words, and just want to get some other voices involved.
Thank you. When Rosemary introduces us at the beginning of every Friday meeting, we have a chance to see who's in the room. By coming to this room on Friday mornings, you are saying who you are and who you represent and what your interests are. During the inclement weather, and 3 of us from the coalition were called into the Emergency Operations Center. I had the privilege of being in that nerve center, and I just did a quick list of the number of people that I called, emailed, or texted, and every one of you replied, maybe not with an answer that I wanted, but you gave me an answer, which means we can redirect and go another way. And most of you gave me an answer that I wanted. So when Garrett talks about the blah, 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 I'm here to say what the blah, blah, blah is. So during last Sunday through last Sunday, I made at least 31 calls to you. So just sit and listen. My hat's off and thank you for being there to Dion Jacobson, St. Vincent de Paul, Joe Perva, LIHI, Harry Frankie, CMAR, Verna Lilly, Medical Reserve Corps, Rick Trombley, Medical Reserve Corps, Gabby Hubbard, Health Department, Zoe, Health Department with 400 N95 donation, Jenny Sheppy, Health Department, Sue Jenkins, Isolation and Quarantine Team, Health Department, Susan Ahrens, Vallejo, Jeanette Williams, Rise, and thank you for marrying Gerald, Sue Potter, Nourish ED, the Pete Fisher, Chief of Police for the City of Fife, Mike Zarro, Chief of Police for City of Lakewood, Nate Cooper, TRM, Julianne Taylor, Nativity House, Laura McIntyre, City of Tacoma Hot Team, Tyler, Food Not Bombs, Nora Hacker, First United Methodist Street Outreach, Richard Berghammer, Street Outreach, Don Bowl, Catholic Community Services, Keith Helmka, Social Worker, Virginia Mason CHI. Then on a daily basis, we could count on interactions and support from Jeffrey Boyce and Ed Jacobs, our informal street workers, the leadership teams at TRM and Nativity House, Luis and Fatima, Jan Hutchins, LASA, Gerald Williams, Rise, Paula Anderson, New Hope, Teresa Power Drudas, Our Lady Queen of G Street. Anne Maureen Howard, our walking encyclopedic collective memory. Now, there are 50 people on this call right now. I just listed 31 people. 31 people I listed. Only the chiefs of police are not regular members of this outfit. I'm pleased to see the city of Fife is here. Anyway, it was amazing. I'm going to give you a short story of how complicated it is to extend a hand and do the right thing. I got a phone call from Rise. A woman had contacted them because she was being evicted from a hotel because the St. Vincent de Paul hotel voucher program was expiring. I'm sitting at the table with Garrett, who's representing Human Services Pierce County. Garrett can immediately extend the contract services for St. Vincent de Paul. They extend the number of days available for her to stay warm in that hotel with an 8-year-old child. I get a phone call later from the hotel manager where she's staying, saying that she has nowhere to go after the warm days or after her voucher is up. I talk to people in the room. I give her the phone number for Bethlehem Baptist, which accepts families, and the Family Day Center, which has case management. So on the third day of that, I get a phone call as I'm leaving the EOC about 5 o'clock at night, and it's the woman. And she's crying. And she's crying with happiness, right? I mean, it worked. You guys all came together. It worked. Okay, goodbye.
Thank you so much, Jan. Love that story. So Josh, did you want to share? I don't know if you're available right now. I'm not seeing you on the screen.
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, my phone I took it off mute. My phone just rang right away. So, thank you everyone. And I wanted to, actually, we have the guy who did it all, who was, and didn't do it all, but worked with everyone, in his capacity with LIHI. Joe is able to spend a few minutes, sharing about that. And I wanted to hand it over to him to share about that. Then he has to jump off and do more intakes at, Aspen Court. And, then he has a meeting with the city of Tacoma later. He's a busy guy. So, and then I can share later about, just sort of general LIHI updates, but I saw that you added that to the agenda. So thank you for doing that. So Joe, take it away.
Hello, everyone. It was actually amazing. So we got to serve about 75 different individuals who came in during the cold weather time. Some things that were awesome is that so they had a projector screen thing here, so we brought a projector in for kind of like some light entertainment. The community was really good. It was nice because I got stuck in the snow bringing some supplies, and the gentleman came by and asked me if it's okay, and I was trying to get him stuck, and I told him I was bringing food to the shelter. So him and his old lady jumped out the car and started digging me out. They're like, "We're not going to leave you stuck here bringing food to a shelter." So that was super cool. And then the neighbors came out and helped try to clear up some of the snow. Linda Stewart was amazed from the city because they had them come clear everything up because we had a couple individuals in wheelchairs, so we needed that wheelchair ramp cleared up. So she got that cleared up really quick. And we had a lot of individuals come in and help get us some dinners, and we even had like catered Chick-fil-A one night, and a lot of people came together. Angela, she must have a lot of friends because a lot of people came and brought some home cooked meals. So that was super awesome. It was great. It's amazing. And Valet will be taking over today, so I'll be training them at 10 o'clock. That's why I'm kind of trying to get it out there real quick. I'll be handing that off to them, and then I'll go to Aspen, and then I'll do some intakes. It was just an amazing experience. There was a lot of people really helped out that came in, that we were actually serving. They came in, they were really, really helpful and just, getting stuff together. And it was just, it was nice. It was an amazing experience, and I was happy to be a part of it, and I appreciate, Garrett, I calling Garrett up, hey, can we get some blankets? Can we get some of this? And he's jumping on it. And, I really appreciate that, there were so many people that helped. I really appreciate it. I'm worked a couple, 16-hour shifts. So if I'm a little foggy right now, I apologize, but, it was great. It was a beautiful experience. And, so many major people chipped in. A lot of people that I knew from church came and actually with some of the workers here, we had workers who came from, other villages as well. We have that lived experience. So they were great to there. So that, they definitely, interacted with them when they came in really well. So it was a beautiful experience, and then that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I see Jeffrey has his hand up.
Good morning, everyone. Just a kind of I'll try and keep this short, but on Christmas Eve at service, I talked to my congregation and said, there may be some hungry people, so be prepared. Now, mind you, in this congregation, there are several retired school cooks. and they love to cook. So on Monday, I put out the word, yes, we need to make some meals. They provided 4 huge pots of soup, 3 huge trays of lasagna. So I called Ed and said, hey, we're going to need a hand here. And Jim Warnock, who was the vicar, and I went out. We went to 8 encampments and fed soup and sandwiches to somewhere around 75 people. No, it was more than that. On Friday, we went out again with the lasagna reheated, and all told, between the 2 days, we fed about 200 mouths. We covered pretty much we tried to cover as much of the encampments in Tacoma as we possibly could. We were handing out water, handing out blankets. The blankets were greatly appreciated, believe me. Most of these encampments stayed together. 34th and Pacific, the one out on the Planet Fitness. They were all so appreciative. And then on Yakima, the 14th and Yakima site, I ran into a lady I hadn't seen since they swept 8th and Yakima. I was glad to see she was still alive and doing well. It was just one of those things. Stores were closed. It was hard for people to get around. There was no way that these people out in these tents could cook their food and get out of their sleeping bag. So we fed them. We fed them the best we could. And my hat's off to All Saints Episcopal Church. They did an incredible job. And I'm really proud of them. They really did something special. I do want to make one comment, though. I was very disappointed that I did not see or hear of the city of Tacoma's outreach teams being out in the encampments. I talked to the campers about that. Have you had any visitors? No, mostly only at night, which would be TRM. God bless them. But I was really disappointed that the city of Tacoma had no outreach people out checking on these people. We were in dangerous weather condition, and they were not to be found. Thank you.
Thanks for your observations, Jeffrey. Maureen, you have your hand up.
I got half the behavior modification, not to just talk. The other half is to unmute myself when I get to talk. But just a couple things. One, when we go into the breakouts, bring forward, everything you can think of that would be helpful. And but the other thing is, I want people to know that Tacoma Safe stepped up in ways that people may not be aware of. When Sherry Jensen went out in a panic about how to get shelter staff to shelters, I worked with her, and she agreed to use their existing Lyft account, but she could forward fund it, but she didn't have any funding source for it. So we still had $1,400 in the MRC account in the coalition, and Jan Runbeck agreed to let us use that to cover the first $1,200 of the Lyft costs. And I went to Tacoma Safe. I went to Angela Connolly and asked them to step in ahead of the coalition. And Angela came back immediately with a $500 commitment. So it turns out we don't need to use it, the Tacoma Safe commitment. We don't need to use the coalition's MRC money, because Sherry was able to work with I think it's her city contract to be able to get reimbursed for those costs. But so it's a couple of things. One is, partners we don't normally think of who can quickly respond to unusual requests. And the other one is how much going forward we've got to pre-plan these things. We need more lead time than others. So.
Thank you, Maureen. And I see Jeff or Ed has his hand up as well.
Before we go into the breakout, a bit of reality. We did lose 2 people to the weather during this time frame, and it's interesting, and we can talk about it at another time, but when you stand in front of a row of tents and start calling out to people who you don't know, and there's a hand that comes out through a zipper that says, yes, I want a blanket, or I want socks, or that we can hand water to, because they don't want to open the tent up to come out because they lose all their heat. And the 18-hour hand warmers, other hand warmers are good. The 18-hour hand warmers, as one man was explaining to a group of people, you get in your sleeping bag and you open one of those things up and you go to sleep and you can wake up still warm, with the confidence. And so those were really important. And socks, I mean, it became a standard operating procedure to ask people if their socks are wet. If they can't tell you, then the next question is, have you felt your toes lately? And it leads you down that path. Or if they say, oh, well, if I had socks, they'd probably be wet. Okay. But those things to connect the last 3 feet. The second time you come by, they recognize your voice, and you start getting responses right away. And you start getting people to say, oh, well, John lives in that tent, but he's at work right now, so he's going to need this. It was a very worthwhile experience. So thank you.
Good. And Paula, you have your hand up, and then we'll go into the breakouts following Paula's comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody that at the leadership level that helped us out. This definitely went a lot better than the hot weather that we had earlier this year. Hats off to people just wanting to do whatever it took. Garrett actually was a private chauffeur for us one night when we had to shut down one of the churches early because of a COVID outbreak, and helped us transport people who tested negative to another location so they could still be warm and safe. And I just want to say that I feel like the churches did an outstanding job, the ones that were up. And the folks that came together are used to doing that in our neck of the woods, just because we usually have freezing nights, and because of COVID we hadn't had it. And so I think honestly more needs to be done in conjunction with cities along with county to try and put together this plan so that cities can't opt out, which I feel like happens all the time in our area. They opt out of trying to be a part of what's going on and a part of a response to a situation that impacts everybody in the county. I just feel like that's something that we really need to work on and somehow come to an agreement on. So, but I think the support that we had within our group, those of us that are used to getting it done, we got it done, and we relied on each other. And I just thank everybody, Jan, Mike, Garrett, everybody on down to the volunteers of the churches. So I feel like that response was from the heart. So we're the heart of the county, guys.
Thank you, Paula. So here's what I'm going to do. We'll spend the next 10 minutes or so in small groups. I'm going to assign everybody to the groups of 5 or 6 people. And if someone in each of the groups could take some brief notes, the purpose of this section is both to have a chance to get to know each other better, but also to collect some thoughts around this question. What would help you better respond to needs in the next emergency? We don't know if the next emergency is going to be the same situation that we had last week, but, whether it's heat or cold or earthquake or whatever, what is going to help you? So let's spend the next 10 minutes and away we go. All right, so it looks like everybody's filtering back into the room. I hope that everyone had good conversation. I know it was a short period of time, but again, as a reminder, if anyone in your room took some notes, please use the chat to paste those in, and we will move forward with the rest of our meeting. We're almost on time with the agenda. The next item on our agenda is going to be some additional updates from the Low Income Housing Institute. And Josh, are you ready to do those now?
I am, and I know, Rob, you're trying to talk with me just before I jumped into the breakout room, so.
It all works out.
All right, well, I just want to provide some quick, year-to-date. This only could take a couple minutes, and then I need to jump off to a meeting with a faith partner. So I was just going to provide some quick up-to-dates and then kind of how things are looking regarding our community advisory committees. So just do a call out to the community about folks who are interested in that. But first, just some quick 2021, basically kind of like a snapshot annual report on our sites. So we now have 5 sites in Tacoma, 5 shelters or tiny house villages. We have served, if looking over the whole year, 163 people at our 6th and Orchard site, 73 people at 69th and Proctor, which is combining together the folks who moved there from 60th and McKinley, 32 at our Puyallup Tribe of Indian site, 60, and then at Aspen Court, 45 people. So basically, all told, we have served about 313 people over that time. We have about 55 people who have moved into permanent housing overall. Some sites, recently opened, so we're kind of in the process of getting folks the case management services, getting them their IDs, getting them the support that they need, and looking at housing options out there, and starting to apply for those things. So we're kind of early in the process, but it was overall about a 41% exit rate to permanent housing. The others, we have a lot of beyond that. That's it could be. We always want to be higher, right? But beyond that, we have move-ins into other forms of shelter. We have move-ins into transitional housing. People got reunited with with family and friends. So there's some numbers that are not reflected in that number that I just shared. So there's beyond that, there's a number of other positive move outs beyond that. So I just want to make sure that is clear. So we moved from 60th and McKinley to 69th and Proctor at basically the end of September. We added another 20 houses, serving another 20 to 25 folks. So it is now no longer a tiny house village. It's now a tiny house metropolis. We're basically we have our 24/7 staff. We added to our case management. We have I think we have 3 case managers out there and now working really hard to get everyone the support they need and moved into permanent housing. On December 13th, we opened Aspen Court. It's formerly the Comfort Inn. So we renamed it the fancy title Aspen Court. And we now have, actually, I think I said the wrong number earlier. We've moved in some more people recently. That was just what our HMIS showed, but it's now actually 63 people who have moved in 56 rooms. We have another 30 plus rooms available for folks. We sort of had a pause a little bit on intakes because of the weather and everything going on. People couldn't get to the shelters. That's another thing that we can always talk about is improving transportation, right? And so we learned that's something just across our region when we get hit by these storms, like how we get people, where they need to go and the assistance to do that. And we play a role in that too. So we'll drive around and pick folks up and we're a part of doing that, but we can always do better on that score in our region that doesn't get hit by a snowstorm too often. And I'll just tell you, you don't want me driving on the road in the snow. I'm not a good snow driver, so I totally understand that. But yeah, we can always learn lessons on that. In 2 years, we're going to convert Aspen Court into permanent supportive housing. So we're trying to move towards that. And then I wanted to share something that I'm just going to read off of this really quick. So we had I'm trying to share if there's anything that I missed on here. I think that's about it. Okay, so yeah, that's all I had to share on that. I just want to look through my summary to make sure. And then, so one thing that I wanted to mention, just about a minute or two here, we have a community advisory committee that oversees it's basically neighbors and businesses and faith communities and schools and others who in like local neighborhood councils and things like that, who are part of these committees at each of these villages or shelter. We have a CAC, Blossomy CAC that we're getting together for Aspen Court. And so one thing I just wanted to put a call out that on some of these CACs we could use a few more members. I think there's a lot of people that are around the site that don't realize that this committee exists and that it's a big part of the success of the village. And it's a big part of education out to the community on how we do this, how we do this program. And it kind of like, it takes the mystery off of the whole thing. And then people understand, they really start working with their unsheltered neighbors and they're part of the, or unhoused, I should say, their shelters. So we want to get them to that place of being permanently housed. So it just kind of increases that understanding, reduces that anxiety and those fears and stereotypes people have. So it's really a chance to come and be a part of those committees and learn about the village. You hear from operations management staff, you hear from case management. We provide a report out, about how things are going there, how residents are doing, the outcomes for the month, any challenges that we could use a little help with. Donations needed. We're collecting a lot of winter donations. So these CACs, they provide oversight, but they also provide support. So they basically provide advisory input based off what they hear, but then they really turn into bodies of folks who become the biggest supporters and champions of the village's success and ambassadors to the community about the village and the village program and the shelter program. So they provide a lot of education out to the community. So when their neighbors are asking about it, they're wondering what's going on inside, they're there to provide that information to them. We try to do that, as well. Everywhere we go, we provide presentations and everything else, but it really is getting that word out. These CACs are a big part of that. So, we have these sites. I won't read out the address for each one, but you can look that up really easily and you can see if you're kind of close to the site. So we're bringing on neighborhood stakeholders, but you don't have to be that terribly close. It's basically, living close by, working close by, serving at a nonprofit, attending a faith organization, church close by, being involved in the community in some way. It's kind of a loose definition of what a neighborhood stakeholder is, but that's kind of what it is. And so if anyone's interested, I'm going to put my information in the chat. Please reach out to me if there's one of those sites that you're pretty close to, that you're involved in the neighborhood somehow or involved with an organization. Please, let me know if you're interested. And at least, one thing you could do is if you don't want to commit, these are an hour-and-a-half meeting, by the way, a month. That's the only commitment is attending the meeting. You can go well beyond that, but that's what it is. And they're virtual this time. We're going to stay, we're probably going to be doing that for a little while longer. We might eventually go back to in-person or do a hybrid of both in-person and virtual once we get to that point. We always meet on a weeknight, never a Friday. And it's always, 4 or 5 or 6 in the evening. So you can kind of get done with work and not be bombarded with calls and emails and all that while you're in the meeting. So let me know if you're interested in any one of those particular sites, joining the CAC, even just coming to one of the meetings to see what it's about before you make that commitment. So I'll leave my information in the chat, and I really appreciate this time. And thanks for adding me to the agenda, Rob, to share all this.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And I think if there's an easy place to point people about what the CACs are and what the commitment is, that might be really good to refer folks. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send that. I actually have an informational sheet that goes over that. So if anyone's interested in receiving that, I'm really glad you brought that up. I can send that to anybody who wants to, and I'll just put it in my email. I have it ready to fire off along with the CAC application if anyone wants, for those who want to apply.
You could just send that to the coalition mailing list, and then everybody has it. That'd be great.
Awesome. I will do that. Thank you.
Right.
And
Thanks,
great to work with the city of Tacoma, all the neighbors, the community folks, the allies, our faith partners. That we have several faith-sponsored sites, and just really grateful to the Tacoma Coalition. And I mean, there's so many people to thank. It's a little bit overwhelming. So thank you everyone for being a partner in this, and helping these sites be successful and educating out to the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Josh. So speaking of the city of Tacoma, so the next item in our agenda is our regular government updates. We don't have someone from the city of Tacoma, I don't believe, on the call. I'll be quiet here for a second just in case we do have somebody. I wasn't anticipating that we would, but I'll do
a super tiny update from. So last night there was a community meeting about the Lighthouse warming shelter. And so I just wanted to let folks know that it was not terribly well advertised that I know of. So there's only 3 of us attending, but they did talk a little bit about that transfer to Vallejo, and it's going to be slightly reduced capacity of around 25 instead of 35. But hopefully at some point we can get Sherry to give us an update on that. That's all I have.
Great, Garrett. And I do have some information that Allison Griffith from the city did email me last night, so I'm going to paste that into the chat. And there's kudos in there for Josh and Joe's work at LIHI as well. A lot of recognition. I will add one caveat when I paste this in. It's going to talk about how many folks were at Aspen Court yesterday. Josh gave us a new number, so even though the city says 58, I would go with Josh's new 63 number. But I will paste that in the chat and move on to Pierce County updates. Let's see. Didn't see Jeff on the call earlier. Garrett, did you know if there was going to be any updates from Pierce County Human Services?
No idea. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. I do know Valerie was on the call earlier. Valerie, do you have anything to update us about?
Sure. So thanks for having me. A couple quick updates is the portal is currently closed. It will reopen no later than February 1st. And the reason for that is because we have a new vendor and a new portal. Josh, you have a call coming.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Valerie.
Sorry, I'm still muted. Okay, so when the new portal opens, it will have additional languages. It will be easier to use for both tenants and landlords and provide greater reporting and updates for our jurisdiction. So super excited and very, very thankful for Pierce County for allowing us to do that. It's a very big shift, so we've had to shut down for a couple weeks for data quality, but landlords are being updated consistently. Emails are going out to tenants every week. And so for spending, we are actually at 98.37% spent for our DOT funds, which is the Treasury dollars. We did request more money and were denied. They had too many people come in for dollars, so we did not get that additional bucket. And then our TRAP dollars, we're at 99.53% spent. So those are buckets that we won't really have to worry about moving forward, but we do have state dollars and American Rescue Plan dollars that are still available. So we still have over $53 million available with an additional $23 million coming once we spend one of these buckets. So process continues. We're not issuing any huge changes at this time. We're just trying to really refine the process. And then outreach events, so in-person outreach events will continue in February. I am off starting today, and I will not return until the 18th. So I will not be available via email, phone, or really anything. That's my goal. And so if y'all need anything, please email that HS Rent email box, and the amazing V will respond to you. But if you have questions, please just give her some time because we're going from a team of 2 to a team of 1. So yes, thank you all, and I will be back on the 18th with additional updates after that.
Hope you enjoy your vacation, Valerie.
Thank you.
All right, so shifting gears over to an update from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. Leah is here with an update for us today.
Good morning, everyone. Is my thing turning on? Oh, it's covered. There we go. So as a reminder, the number for INQ needs is 820-4684. Make sure I throw that in the chat, but give that a call for folks in need of isolation and or quarantine. As of this morning, unfortunately, we do have 0 beds available. We are continuing to work on, building that capacity. It's been just a busy time with these variants, sorry. And so, really trying to find a quick solution to increasing that capacity there. Yesterday, the CDC updated their isolation and quarantine guidance for schools K through 12. At this time, there's no changes to congregate settings, but just wanted to share that that's something that could come in the near future. If we hear anything, we will obviously share that out, but I'll also put the link in the chat to the CDC website and scroll to the bottom for congregate settings. As of the 5th, we have 4 shelters in outbreak, so Nativity House, Tacoma Rescue Mission, Lee Haven, Bethlehem Baptist, and all but TRM are currently able to resume activities. And we also, our leadership still is supporting allowing shelters in outbreak status to accept new guests if it's necessary, especially due to the cold weather. And then if you have any specific questions about that, I'd recommend reaching out to Tim or Kiwan, and happy to facilitate that communication as well. Or just reach out just through your normal chain of communication. Our testing branch is working to get our testing supplies out to those who need them most. Obviously, we're working with you all when there's some individual outbreaks at locations as best as they can. Also waiting some more flexible options with take-home tests that are like a rapid style. We just haven't received the shipment yet. And I'm sure you all have heard there's a high demand for testing in the county currently. And so it's just kind of like a struggle all around. There was a temporary site that opened this week at the Gold Lot at the Washington State Fairgrounds. It does end today. Hours are 10 to 5. You don't need an appointment. And then just to share, the Cheney Stadium site and Bonnie Lake Park and Ride testing sites are now by appointment only. They can only take 600 appointments a day. And they're looking to hire as quickly as possible. So more to come with that. So if you do have any testing needs, obviously you can reach out to us. We can try to support you as best you can. You can call our call center number. You can check our website. And then the at-home test kits are available at Pierce County and Tacoma Public Libraries, as well as Puyallup Public Libraries when they have them on hand. What else? Our contractor ambulance is continuing work on the Rooted Site clinics. They have several vaccine events scheduled at shelters through the month of February. And then any other community events that you're aware of serving this community, definitely share with us. We'd love to support and get folks out to offer vaccine or testing or whatever you think would be helpful. And just want to throw out a reminder of the flu. We're working so hard to help stop the spread of COVID, and it's flu season as well, so we need to fight that too. And respiratory illnesses in general are just really high right now. And in our county right now, flu is low. It's only been like minimal for ED and very low hospitalizations. No deaths from flu. No long-term care facilities have reported an outbreak of flu-like illness, and that's the same for the state. But in the U.S., the flu activity is increasing, especially in eastern and central U.S. And so just as everything, it makes its way. And so I just anticipate that coming. And so just want to throw out the reminder for the flu shot. So I'll post info in the chat about that and a flyer as well. And we can also get that to you all in other languages. And so if that's a need, let me know. And I'll stop there unless there's questions.
Thanks, Leah. Any questions for the health department? All right, not seeing any at the moment. Thank you for the links you're putting in chat too. All right, and our last government update would be, I don't know if we have anybody from the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on the call. I think they're quite busy with running testing sites, so pop-up testing. So shifting gears, Garrett, did you want to do a quick announcement?
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Today, we are being joined by a high school class for the Science and Math Institute. If you're not familiar, that's a kind of targeted high school. I don't know what they're called. The Tacoma Public Schools has 3 high schools that sort of focus in on areas, and the Science and Math Institute's a pretty cool one. I'm kind of biased because my kids both go there, or one did, one is. They have a weird schedule that allows them a mini term in January, and so they spend a month basically doing an intensive look, so basically the same class every day all month, and one of the classes is focusing in on homelessness. And so there's 3 teachers and, 40, 50 students. And part of their class is kind of community engagement. And they're attending today as their class. So a big welcome to them. They will be working on some projects. So they'll break into small groups with projects. And I suspect there might be places where they could use a little help from folks like us in the room. So I think you might end up getting an email or 2, and so would love us to kind of support these students as they figure out ways to help support their community and learn more about homelessness. I'm going to throw in the chat a little bit about Sammy. You can learn more, but anyway, it's a neat way that our public schools are really doing targeted universalism in their work to get folks graduated.
Fantastic. And yeah, we can see, if you look carefully, you can see the screen with a number of the students backlit. So hi, everybody. We can definitely see you, and thank you for being here. Sorry we use so many acronyms. So let's shift gears once again over to advocacy updates, and I'd invite Maureen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for allowing me the greater part of the last month, except for the cold weather, to focus on my family. And all right, advocacy. And glad to have those SAMI folks, especially those of you who are 18 and can vote, or who will be soon. But for everybody, okay, things to remember. Yes, nonprofits can advocate. What you cannot do is endorse a potential candidate, all right? Check with your agency to see what their policy on advocacy is. You might have to use your personal email address, your personal phone, your personal time. Each organization is different, and the government agencies all have rather strict policies. So just check. Know who represents you at the state level. It's ledge.wa.gov. Everything you need to know. It's one of the easiest central website addresses that you'll have available to you. So your elected representatives want to know where you live and where you vote. All right? Because they want to be reelected and they want to represent you well. But it's also important that you know who represents where you work and that you know what committees they might sit on, what their particular interests are, what bills they might have. For instance, if you're in the 28th, Mary Levitt has an inclement weather bill that was pre-filed before the session started. The session, I know, the other thing is, don't be discouraged if the representative or the senator's office says, talk to my staff person. When I started, Jeannie Darnielle, former Senator Jeannie Darnielle, was State Senator Lorraine Wojon's legislative assistant. All right? So you never know what somebody's going to become over the years. So trust the folks who represent the people who represent you. The session starts Monday, January 10th. It will last 60 days. The governor can convene an extra 30. It will be virtual. All right? That's good because that's equal access for everybody. You don't have to worry about transportation. It's equal access as long as you have communication. And if you or the people with whom you work don't have internet access, then we'll figure it out. The phone number you need in the phone that you can use to contact your legislators is 1-800-562-6000. That's the central number for the Washington State Legislature, 1-800-562-6000. And take the time to put the contact information for your particular elected representatives and senator into your phone or into your, address book, wherever, contact list, wherever, so that if you need to contact them in a hurry, you don't have to look them up. And Rob, so there is a great simple document from Disabilities Rights Washington on how to testify. It's clear, it's succinct, and you don't have to be a policy wonk or anything else. It's just in simple, straightforward language. The really good news is there's money available. I didn't check the most recent figure, someplace over $5.5 billion available. And that always makes for a happy session. It also makes for a lot of people who want the money. The governor has put on the table in excess of $800 million for housing and homelessness. And the coalition, our coalition, on our last meeting adopted the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance's legislative agenda, and we will follow that. And so we've got through them a full-time policy person and lobbyist, Michelle Thomas, and then also Nick Federici on a contract basis. And then a collection of people who are known as the Public Policy Committee, Cynthia Stewart representing the League of Women Voters, Rob Huff representing MDC, and myself are on that Public Policy Committee. So we have some additional opportunities to gain information and to shape responses. This coalition, we will sign in as requested by the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance, either for or against, depending on what our position is, what the Alliance's position is. Your organization or you as an individual may well have a different position, and you can do that as representing yourself or your organization. But for the coalition, we will follow the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance. It's the beauty of having these overarching coalitions and different structures. Let's see. I will forward Alliance information to the full listserv. I will try to target those of you whom I already know have a particular interest in something, like people who work on criminal justice, because the Housing Justice Act is a priority for the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance. And I will also, I invite you to email me if you want to be more involved. I'm going to try and do some targeted Zoom meetings. I'll put the invitation on the listserv. We'll see who comes. I'll try and be really clear about the topic, and we'll see how that goes. And that might be a way for people who otherwise, and I'm not going to ask for when you're available or anything like that. We're going to work to my schedule. It's the best I can do. So it helps me if I know that you or your organization has a public position that significantly differs from the Alliance position. I'm not going to try and make you change it. It just helps me know the lay of the land a little better. And the same if you have, intelligence that you think is helpful. If you've got a one-on-one relationship with a state senator or with an elected representative, because when push comes to shove, that's the connection that we need. Now, all of those folks who are joining us today from SAMI, you don't have to be 18 to participate, only to vote. So I encourage you, and I make myself available to you if it fits in, if you want to talk about how high school students can be engaged. We have an incredibly open state legislative process. So use it. All right. I think we have a few minutes for questions, comments, thoughts.
We do. So if you want to use the raise hand function, that'll be a great way to be able to call on you if you have any questions about advocacy coming into the session. Looks like we're good for now. I did share those links to the testimony page and to the legislative front page, essentially. And I definitely would reiterate there's a lot of value in being able to sign in and support of bills. There was last year. It's quite likely that'll be the case again this year. And I was hearing in a meeting regarding planning from community action organizations across the state earlier this week that there's the line of thinking that thoughtful email messages to your representatives also could be more helpful. The caveat there is that they get a lot of email, so don't expect a super long response, but you may be fortunate and be able to provide some background information that would really swing their thinking. So.
And also support their position. Don't assume because your elected representative generally supports what we want that you don't have to talk to them. No, they need to be in a position where they can tell their colleagues who do not support the position that I have heard from every district or, 15 organizations or whatever it is supporting me in this position. So it just strengthens them going forward. If you haven't been part of this, legislation's like sausage and you don't want to see it all. Ultimately, it's just one negotiation after another. It's our job to keep the folks that we represent, these folks who are living without homes, front and center in every single conversation. There is also a piece on the Alliance's agenda that has, and I just haven't had time to check and see if there's actually a bill or not, but I had flagged this earlier for you, and I want to flag it again in a really important way. And that is workforce capacity and sustainability for nonprofit homelessness service providers. So be thinking about that. And as that bill begins to take shape, this is where we will have an opportunity to weigh in on how important it is. In my mind, that's that whole laundry list, from living wages through opportunities for professional development, through housing benefits, through whatever it is that keeps people who want to do this work able to do this work. So, and it's really pretty exciting to have that on the Alliance's agenda. So, I think it's going to be quite a ride. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it'll definitely be quick. 60 days is here and gone, no time at all. Thank you, Maureen.
So, thank you.
And actually, Maureen and Garrett are going to kind of lead the next layer of the conversation, and that is related to the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness that was drafted by Garrett, written by Garrett, and was led and guided by a steering committee that included Maureen as a representative for the coalition. So the focus of this is what happens next. So Garrett and Maureen.
So can I start, Garrett? Would that be all right? Thank you. So I was not able, because of my family responsibilities, to attend the last steering committee meeting. But Rob, thank God, attends everything, and reminded me that we've been asked, what the coalition's role should be going forward. Should there continue to be a steering committee, things like that. So these are my thoughts, and then Garrett and you all can weigh in. So by way of background, if you're just joining us, I believe we can draw a straight line from the beating of the two women in their tent and Patrick's death in the Evergreen encampment in late 2020 to my email to Mayor Woodard's and the resulting safe shelter summits that the coalition convened in December of 2020 and in January of 2021. And from there to the coalition adopting Garrett's proposal that we could actually end street homelessness by November 1st of 2021, and we could have a countywide plan, not to manage homelessness, but to end it. So now, obviously, we didn't meet November 1st for lots of reasons. But we do have that comprehensive plan to end homelessness, and we as a coalition have adopted it. And so now, for me, it's how do we want to be involved in making sure it's implemented? A lot of us worked on this in a lot of different ways. So Garrett mentioned Edward Murrow earlier, and some of you have heard me talk about this. And for about 8 years of my life, I was a U.S. diplomat, a public diplomacy officer, and we used to talk about the last 3 feet. And that's the connection that makes whatever it is happen. This coalition, to my mind, we are the last 3 feet to the solutions to ending homelessness. We know how to close the gap between the good intentions and the policies to the actual personal and public responses. We know how to prevent homelessness. We know how to provide safe shelter. We know how to ensure permanent housing. We're the people who know and value the people who live without homes and who must be central to every decision that we make. And some of us are the people who have lived without homes. We have the experience, the knowledge, the skill, the commitment, and what we don't have, we know somebody who does. We are not so arrogant as to think that any one of us has all of the answers to any of the issues. Between us and among us, we know everyone who needs to be part of this countywide solution. And I really believe that this comprehensive plan to end homelessness, and all of our thanks to Garrett for this design, gives us a framework that we can work within. And so for me, these are the questions. how should this coalition be involved in ensuring that this comprehensive plan is implemented? Remember, it's a plan, all right? It's not etched in stone. It's going to change. So how do we want to be involved as it gets implemented? How do we want our respective organizations, our agencies, the civic or faith-based groups that we belong to be involved? And how do we as individuals want to be involved? So now, Garrett, it's yours.
Well, so my job is continuing on at the county. I'm a temporary employee, but my role is to see this implemented. So I guess I'll be there for a while. And we actually have a meeting today with some of the human services, with the human services director, John Barbie, Delmar, and we're going to be talking about how we're going to implement this plan. And there are so many question marks about that. What do we focus in on first, right? We cannot possibly do all these things at once. So which ones do we need to start now so that they're ready when we're ready? What things are of highest priority? And who needs to be involved? And in a way, who needs to own it? All right, there's some elements around race and equity in that. I would love that to be in the hands of perhaps the Continuum of Care's Race and Equity Committee or something similar within the coalition, right? And what level of ownership of that and support by the county versus ownership by the county and support by that group. So I guess I'm saying I see a lot of flexibility in how we do these things, that my role is to see that they get done. My role isn't on all of them to be the one that's driving it happening, simply making sure it happens. So as I was putting the plan together, I was looking I think there's 24 sort of like separate initiatives that I was sort of laying out, right, that need to happen, right? Things as small as increasing coordinated entry to meet the demand, to as large as figuring out how to, end exits from incarceration to homelessness, right? That things that are a funding problem versus things that are a collaboration, societal data, like lots of complicated parts to it. So I guess my ask is for help on thinking through what parts are of most importance and what parts the coalition absolutely wants to make sure that that we're prioritizing, or that we're making sure that the coalition or certain members of it are very active in it or even leading. That feels a little vague just because there's so many things in that comprehensive plan. I wish I had in a poll, answer yes or no, please. And so this is sort of a vague ask, and maybe it's really just, you need to let me know the parts that your organization or you as an individual care about, but then also a conversation within the coalition about what the coalition wants to be active with. Is that helpful, Maureen? Rob, help me out here.
No, I think
I think it's a good place to get started. One thing I was hoping, though, Garrett, was that I think the distinct question that Michael Mira asked us to ask the coalition today was just to get a sense of what should happen next with the steering committee, and whether the current steering committee is the group that should continue carrying the work forward, or whether the coalition or some other entity should be helping, carry that work forward. Am I recalling his question correctly?
Sure. So let me throw just like 2 minutes of context around there, right? So the steering committee was created at the request of Pierce County Council to draft the comprehensive plan. So to say I drafted the plan is generous. I was really the secretary doing the work of the steering committee. And so that group completed its work and could have been disbanded, but requested instead to have some continual oversight because they're heavily invested in this plan and want to make sure that it gets implemented. And so that brought up the question of, well, what role would that steering committee have? Is that the right group of people to be sort of monitoring this. And it's a bit up in the air. We're bringing the steering committee back, bringing the band back together at the end of February to talk a little bit about that. And so I think input from this, group of folks in the room, I think will help to inform what role they have. And I don't control all the levers, right? So I'm talking about some things that I don't have final say in, right? But I work for the county executive and take his direction, right, through the layers until you get to me in the hierarchy. However, the county council is also heavily involved in this and is providing direction as well. So I'm sort of in a weird spot between directives from the county council and directives from the county executive. But I think that what we all want, so I'll wrap it up here, what we all want is to be successful with this. And so those political bits are not nearly as important as us making sure that the right people are in the room making decisions and that we're transparent enough and accountable enough to the community that you can watch us as we implement this and you can implement it with us. And we can help you implement it, all of those things.
Yeah, that helps set a context. So I thought I'd like to just kind of open the floor for a couple of minutes of saying what folks' thoughts are. I'm pretty confident that the 52 folks who are in this meeting want to see the comprehensive plan move forward, and want to help guide how it moves forward. But I wanted to hear from you guys, not make assumptions. So, what are your thoughts? Carolyn?
I can't figure out how to raise my virtual hand, but so thank you. Garrett, I want to start by saying thank you for all the sustained, really important work you've done to convene, and the coalition, and Maureen and so many people for being just instrumental in the plan. It's so great, and I really am excited to see it go forward. I'm not speaking on behalf of the COC Racial Equity Committee, but I am a member of that group who worked on some of the goal parts of the plan, particularly the targeted universalism and the idea of really rethinking what the homeless system kind of large scale organization would be, and that goal to bring in maybe a consultant-led process to do that kind of long-range planning, while also, as Garrett said, handling all those many other really important imperatives that are hands-on that make a difference. And so all I wanted to say is I do think there's a sort of wisdom to keeping the steering committee together, because I think the coalition needs to be an active partner and play a role in accountability alongside some of the other, in particular, the COC's Racial Equity Committee. I just appreciate that you put that in the room, because I think there's really good work to be done to keep those partnerships alive, and also that you mentioned maybe there is a chance for this kind of a project-oriented collaboration between the coalition's Racial Equity Committee and Rosemary Powers' leadership there, and the COC Racial Equity Committee, as well as the folks who have already been on the steering committee. So I'm just saying that I think just support for those ideas to maybe keep the steering committee involved and really thinking about how the coalition plays a role in accountability and involvement.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I see Rosemary has her hand up.
So thank you, Carolyn, for that. I think that's a good thing for us to talk about at our next meeting, as you said. I have two things about this question. One of them is I support the idea of a steering committee continuing with a specific focus on accountability. I don't know of any time in the past that the county has had a group of people holding them accountable to a plan. I think that's a great model, and I think it could work in other areas. And I agree that the coalition, our coalition, has a role to play in that sort of same kind of accountability question. But we have a lot of other things we do with groups and organizations, and I think that that key focus for that group could be a really powerful instrument for the county. Also, in terms of priorities, one of the things that I know that we've talked about at New Connections so much is that the lack of available housing and the lack of land to build available housing sort of puts everything in a place where we're all kind of stuck at the helping people stay alive rather than helping homes be built. So I think the purchase of land or the beginning of a land bank or land trust or some down that road, it doesn't, quote, solve homelessness immediately. Some of these projects would go for years before they got built, but when the land is so expensive it can't be purchased anymore, there won't be any potential to do it. So that's a point I would like to see high on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. And Carolyn has her hand up as well. Carolyn Reed.
Thank you. I agree with the accountability idea, of course, and getting more land for the housing. The other critical thing is going to be the funding. And I don't, Maureen said we can advocate maybe as individuals of our organization, but I lead a group of Revenue for Housing, and it would be very powerful to have people on a coalition maybe show up for some forums in the districts that are not supporting funding sources, other alternative funding sources. So I'd be happy to help with that in order to get some sustainable funding where they can bond against it and leverage against it and pay for, this supportive housing and, specifically the 1/10 of 1% tax is what we're working on now. But that's, really a drop in the bucket of what they need. So I think if we could keep pressure on the county to put some skin in the game to, show up with some money, and I'd be happy to help with that. And it'd be great to coordinate with you guys. Well, I'm part of you guys, but, more closely.
Appreciate that. And Monique.
I'm just, and I may be missing it. I'm just looking over it again, the plan, to see if I can find it. But I see that there are targeted populations, but I don't see anything in the plan as to how these targeted populations are going to be addressed in terms of how do we find these targeted populations and what do we do differently for these targeted populations than we do for other populations. Is that something that I'm missing in the plan?
You are not missing that in the plan. So that's a level of detail that's not in the plan. And basically working on those targeted populations, it sort of starts and ends with data, but all of the middle part is about humans and relationships and cultural appropriate comfort level with services, right? And I don't know how that's going to shape up, or how it's going to shake out. I think the goal is really identifying groups that we're serving poorly, either because our data shows that we're not serving them well, or they're missing from our data because they're not even coming through the front door of the system. And then we're going to work with those groups, hopefully long term. A lot of it's come up with our strategies and then review them every 6 months with with major stakeholder groups or whatever that time frame needs to be, right? To get us going and then to continually monitor. So the goal is a bunch of tools to monitor and then just trying to leverage our community groups that know certain populations and what we need to do. And some of them might be changing our programs and how they operate. And some of it might just be really working hard to make sure that BIPOC organizations are running homeless programs, or, Latino organizations are running homeless programs, or, our LGBTQ community, right, is got their hands in how we're running our, homeless programs. So that's the strategy, but none of that's in much detail in the plan. And that's the importance of the implementation, is making sure we do that stuff right, because lip service gets us nowhere.
Exactly. My concern is that I fall into many of those targeted populations, right? And I don't see a subcommittee of someone who's going to be focused on that. So that is just my concern as a person who would has many intersections there.
Yeah, and intersectionality is really going to be challenging, and I've been working on some data around that. It's like there are some groups that don't show really poor outcomes until you put the intersectionality together, and then it's horrific, and in the way we fail to serve them. So, yeah.
So on the steering committee, we made some very deliberate recommendations to Garrett on the structure of the plan, that we not try and include every single strategy in the plan, but rather that it be clear, a limited number of goals that we felt addressed the breadth of what needed to be done, and to have a resulting document that elected officials could grab onto and easily grasp and understand and hopefully buy into. And we heard that, those of us who are on a call earlier this week with Councilmember Mello and Zeiger, both of them very different in their, positions, but both of them really endorsing the plan and feeling proud about it. And so I think, when my questions about how do you want to be involved, how your organization and stuff, I mean, I think we got, Garrett listened to us when members of the steering committee said we need to expand these working groups beyond the steering committee to bring in people who have expertise. And that's how the COC's Race and Equity Committee got there. That's how we got some housing people in, that sort of thing. So Garrett set up a portal we can just dump stuff into. Questions, ideas, whatever. That it's one-stop shop kind of thing, so that you have it and we know you have it.
Right. And I understand that this does not get into details, and I don't want to take a whole lot of time up. I understand it doesn't get into details, but if this is a target that we're looking at in terms of BIPOC and disabilities and LGBTQ and Two-Spirit and all that, then why would it not be a subcommittee? That's my concern.
There aren't any subcommittees right now.
I see it on the plan that there's some subcommittees. That's why I asked.
There were. That was the target of universalism.
So, Monique, I'm not gonna be able to probably satisfy you until we actually are successful in some of this. But there will be an implementation plan specifically for this work, and it will have that level of detail in it, and it will be a committee working exactly on this. And so, obviously, we want you there working on that with us. If you just didn't have that day job that took all your time, but no, but having that, you're not running the shelter yet. What are you doing? But no, kidding, I'm kidding. But my point is that right, we're going to have as much community involvement as we possibly can in the vast majority, and so I think that finding the we'll be posting our implementation plans all on a website and making sure that, I get them out to the folks that I think care about them so they can review them, so that we are doing the steps that we need to do, because again, we can't continue to sort of struggle with certain populations when there's people here that know how to better serve them, and we are, we're obligated to really take that expertise and put it to good use.
Right. And just, being a boots on the ground type person with the work that I'm doing, I'm concerned that it's not something that's on paper for people to say, oh, great, we've got this and let's put it in a file. I want to be sure that it takes it those last 3 feet like we're talking here. Right. Thank you. Thanks for your responses.
And I want to make sure on the coalition's part that when Garrett talks about reaching out to people he knows are concerned, that we broaden that outreach so that people he may not yet know are concerned have an opportunity to also voice their, interest, their experience, and everything else.
So to sum all of this up, and there's way too much here to sum up in the 15 minutes we spent with it, because it was months of work and I can't remember how many hours. I don't think I want to count them. But it sounds like there's a lot of support for the steering committee continuing, whether it's the current membership or substituting in new members, that there's a lot of support for that. And there's a lot of support from those in the room here today to help make sure that this plan can move forward and get implemented. So I guess my question to you, Garrett, is, I know you're going to do this already, but I trust you will use the coalition for good to move this forward, and let us know where there are gaps and things where we can help do, like Maureen mentions, the outreach as well as actual boots on the ground, help to move the plan forward. So the point of today's conversation was just to get a temperature of the room and make sure that some of these concerns could be raised so we know they're front and center. And you're muted.
Because I don't know how to use Zoom. When I say, like, I'd be interested to see, like, if the Race and Equity Committee at the coalition or the COC wants to lead something, I don't mean do all the work, right? I mean direct county staff in doing work, right? So it's no sense of getting free work, right? The goal is your expertise and some of your time to help us with that, or as much work as you want to do, but there isn't an expectation that you're responsible for staffing, right? That continues to be a responsibility of the county and hopefully our other jurisdictions, right? Like the more we can bring the city of Tacoma and the city of Fife, yay for being here, and the city of Lakewood and Puyallup and, and the not cities of Parkland or, like our other areas, the more we can bring them in, the better we're going to serve our community.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I'm nervously looking at the clock. So let me know, let me fill you in. One of our goals moving forward in this year is to try to wrap these meetings up a little bit early. Fittingly, the first meeting of the year, we're failing at that. But the goal will be that we try to end by 10:50 so people have a little bit of space before maybe they have an 11 o'clock meeting. I know we have other items on the agenda. If somebody has anything that's super critical that they need to share here in the last minute or so, this would be an opportunity. Rosemary, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, I just wanted, to announce that the Race and Equity Committee will meet next Thursday at 3 p.m. on Zoom, and we'll put the information in the PC Homeless webpage as soon as I create the Zoom link. But if that's not a good time for you, we will be planning when we'll have meetings for the coming year. So I put my email in the chat, and if you could just send me, or if you have the agenda from today, I'm at the very top when I did the welcome, you'd have my email there as well, to let me know times that do work for you so that we can consider those when we set up future meetings. So for this coming Thursday, January 13th at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Rosemary. And we are at 10:59. I always like to provide some space for people to offer their feedback on what worked well in today's meeting and what could be done better next time. I invite you to use the chat to provide that. And I do want to do one final thank you to the class from Sammy. I see you guys on screen, and appreciate you again.